Hi, Reggie here, speaking about Healing America's Narratives. We're still navigating Chapter 5, which is a brief history of African Americans. And just some background on numbers, approximately 12.5 million Africans were kidnapped and taken to the Americas, meaning what are now known as North, Central, and South America, including the Caribbean islands. About 10.5 million of them survived the Middle Passage, the crossing of the Atlantic Ocean. Of those, somewhere in the vicinity of 350 to 400,000 Africans landed in what is now the United States. Over the course of the history of the country, including those years as the country was being founded and then post the founding, there were about 4 million Africans and African Americans enslaved in this country. So this sort of put the numbers out there. Remembering Rabbi Gelman's language, that's one human being enslaved 4 million times. So it's important, I think, to just keep those numbers in perspective. Think about the last time you saw any kind of public, especially nationally established or sponsored public commemoration of the victims of the slave trade in the United States. A street named after an enslaved person, a monument built to an enslaved person, anything like that. So, and then think of the number of monuments or street names or military bases that you've seen named after leaders of the Confederacy, that group of folks who saw fit to fight a war against the United States in order to, not just in order to prolong slavery, but prolonging slavery was included in their fight. And not to reiterate history, there was a lot of naivete and ignorance back then. But in Germany, there are no statues or monuments or street names dedicated to Hitler. In fact, what you'll find in Germany and throughout Europe are monuments to those folks who were kidnapped and then taken to concentration camps. Throughout Europe, you can find what they call stumbling stones in different countries. And they're basically little square, almost like cobblestones, but they're metal, and they have the name of the person when they were kidnapped, where they were interned, and where they were put in prison, and when they died or when they were released. In Germany, there's a large memorial to the Holocaust survivors and victims, that it's just these big concrete slabs. There's no names. It's just this row after row of concrete slabs. That's a kind of sacred place for many people, and just to visit that. There's nothing like that in America. So what we continue to need to do as a country is to fully own what slavery was, and more importantly, what it was to the individual human beings that were enslaved, regardless of how many other cultures in Europe or Asia or the Middle East or in the Americas had slaves thousands of years ago or hundreds of years ago. The issue we're speaking about is the enslavement of Africans in America, and it was one of the founding principles of the country in order to develop economically. All right, so just to put into perspective what we're speaking about here, what has been done, what hasn't been done in what at least one other country that has its own, not original sin, but major sin, to use that word, how they've navigated what they did and how we continue to navigate what we as a country did. All right, so thanks for listening. I look forward to seeing you the next time.